Hey, Taylor Rapp here from the LA Rams. Shout out to Steve Taylor, the real sports guy, and the honorary Ram. When Steve talks sports, you better listen. Thanks, Steve from the Rams, for your continued support and love. We are taking it all the way this year, but you already know that. Go Rams.
It's Albert Prince Bell, 21-0 checking in, and you rocking with Keeping It Real Sports. And we gonna be on these. We gonna be on a lot of times. I love the platform. Check in. It's the new wave. Like, follow, subscribe, and do all that good stuff.
Sports.
Saturday morning. Welcome to the Real Sports Podcast. I am the Real Sports guy, Steve Taylor. You know what? He is the Sandman, Andy Sanzada. Man, we got a big show for you. The NFL is kicking, and we're going to break that all down. Guess what? The return of Sound Off is today. Andy, we got a big show. Tell the people.
Steve, lots to talk about this week. I'm really excited for this one, and the return of Sound Off is going to be epic on both of our accounts, trust me. So we might as well just get right into the quick hitters.
Man, you don't waste any time. Let's do it. This is what we call the quick hitters. Quick hitters.
All right, Steve, a lot going on this week, but the number one story has to be this. And Brittany Griner getting sentenced to 9 years in prison in the Russia courts. President Biden has had enough. He says that this is an atrocity and that they need to bring her home immediately. They're trying to negotiate a way to do that. But in a weird way, Steve, her pleading guilty and getting sentenced now complicates this matter. Your thoughts on this and whether or not we're going to get her home?
Man, all we can do is hope for the best, Andy,
All right, what you got next?
Hey, man, well, I tell you what, the other big story, Andy, it's got to be Deshaun Watson. We finally got a verdict on him. But guess what? Not so fast, my friend. The NFL says we want a harsher penalty. So everything that Judge Sue Robinson said, the NFL wants to disregard. They brought in an intermediate arbitrator. She found that Watson was guilty, but by the NFL bylaws, could only sentence him to 6-game suspension. Man, the saga goes on.
Yeah, and what's interesting is the NFL, I think, did that because of the public opinion. So that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother time. But it was a rough start to this week in the world of professional sports. First, we lost this man, Bill Russell, on Tuesday, passed away at the age of 88. But the solace in that, Steve, is that it was peacefully next to his wife by his bedside. So that was good to hear. But this is a big loss, not just from a basketball standpoint, but from an activist standpoint. Bill Russell had a major impact in the world of professional sports outside of the basketball court. And then we lose one of the greatest voices ever to talk on a microphone, and that being Vin Scully, the legendary voice of the Los Angeles Dodgers, passed away at 94 on Wednesday. I don't think anybody has ever done it better in the game of baseball than Vin Scully. And he was so simple in his delivery, Steve, and his execution, and he always would just allow the crowd to fill a big moment, and that is what a lot of young broadcasters don't do enough. So one of my idols for sure. My uncle, great uncle that lives in Los Angeles, is a huge Dodger fan. He always used to tell me that I would be the one to replace Vin Scully. That was a huge compliment from him, but a major loss for sure. But both of these gentlemen were big impacts on their sports for sure.
Well, I tell you, another big story this week has been the outcry from the UFC fans community to the commentary of the judges' scorecards on the main event of UFC 277. The outcry throughout the contest was that Juliana Pena was really in this. I was actually watching the fight with family, and I literally said to my family members a couple of times, don't listen to the commentary. I mean, it was just one-sided. I don't understand what they were seeing. Nunez beat what we call the brakes off of Juliana Pena. Juliana Pena has to have plastic surgery. I'm done talking about it. It was a great fight. I'm looking forward to UFC 281, where Adesanya will go against Pereira, but that's later on. We'll talk much more about that. But there it is, man. That's what we call the quick hitters for this week.
All right, so there you have it. Yeah, I know you were talking a lot about that fight last week for sure. So
Big
a
time,
lot
big
of
fight.
Between the gloves is coming back, I think, in the next few weeks. We got
It'll
a
be
lot
coming
to talk
back
about.
a lot here real soon, soon. Hey,
Yeah.
man, let's get into what we call the hurry up.
Let's do it.
Hurry up.
All right, Steve, we talked about it in last week's show. Earlier this week, it was the Major League Baseball trade deadline. Took place and ended on Tuesday night. A lot of deals went down, but what we're going to do, because we don't have enough time to do all of those deals or to talk about all of those deals, is we're going to look at three situations that we felt were winning situations coming out of the trade deadline. But let's start here first in the American League East. We've got the Blue Jays and the Yankees both as winners. Now, they both made other moves other than the two you're seeing on the screen. But the two on the screen, Steve, I felt were the most impactful. Frankie Montas comes over from the Oakland Athletics to give them a legitimate starter to amp up that rotation. And then Whit Merrifield finally gets to go back to a contender. But the ironic thing is he's not vaccinated right now.
Exactly.
So he got traded to a team that he may
That he
not
can't
be able
play
to
for.
play in half the games for.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. But going back to the Yankees, man. I mean, we knew coming into this trade deadline it was all about the arms race for the New York Yankees. They were trying to get better. They're fortified, man. Their bullpen. They've got a legitimate a frontline starter to go along with Garrett Cole and that bunch, man. So they really, man, thrust themselves into a great position. As they look forward to the playoffs and the postseason.
They have, Steve, but did you know that the Yankees have one of the worst records in all of baseball since July 1st? They're 14-16. So after that amazing start and that giant lead that they have in the American League East, if that trend continues, look out. There's a couple teams that could sneak up from the bottom or the middle of the pack and possibly track them down and make things a little interesting. All right, let's go.
Andy, you know what they call a bee that can't make honey anymore, right? They call him, a wannabe, because he wannabe, man. Teams want to be like the damn Yankees, man. That's what it is, man. The Yankees are in a whole nother class, man. Just because, man, they stumbled a couple of games, are you really going to, man, jump off that Yankee bandwagon?
No, I'm not. Well, I picked the Blue Jays to go to the World Series anyways, but that's, we don't have enough time for that. We'll get into that as we get closer to the playoffs. All right, another team, a couple teams we thought were winners here. How about the Houston Astros and everything they did, along with the Minnesota Twins? The Twins got the one thing, Steve, that they have been missing that has allowed the Guardians to stay in the race in the Central, and that is a closer. They get Jorge Lopez from the Baltimore Orioles, and then Trey Mancini also leaves Baltimore, and he goes to Houston to solidify their lineup even more. On top of that, the Astros also got a catcher. I think these are two teams that are definitely going to make the playoffs. And the Astros, to me, are the one team that can definitely scare the Yankees for that top seed in the American League.
You know, the Astros are the one team that doesn't be afraid of pinstripes. They're not afraid of the team in pinstripes. You got a point. You're definitely dead on there. But I'm looking at, man, and the head scratcher is the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles are only a game and a half out of the wild card spot. I mean, why in the hell are you selling right now? You know, they're gaining momentum.
You have to feel for the Orioles fans, right? Because they had a team that could legitimately have fought for a wild card spot. Because remember, there's 3 teams.
They're fighting for a wild card spot.
Well, but I'm saying, like, more legitimately, they could have made it. Now they're not going to make it. Forget it. Not with the team they have. So, all right. And then in the National League, you can't be remiss if you don't talk about this, right? I mean, the biggest move of the day, San Diego goes and gets Juan Soto. And, oh, by the way, let's throw Josh Bell in.
Yeah, and by the way.
And then the Phillies get Noah Syndergaard, who's starting to gain his form once again. And on top of that, they went out and got a closer as well. So I really like what both of these teams did. I assure you that they will both make the playoffs. The Padres, Steve, now legitimately could push the Dodgers for the division and the top seed overall in the National League.
Well, it's funny that we're talking about the Dodgers because the Dodgers and the Padres played last night. The Dodgers got the best of that tilt. But Fernando Tatis is starting, man, his rehab stint. Yep. Oh, by the way, so the news gets better for the Padres. So you get Tatis, you put him with Machado, and you put him with Bell and Soto and that group. And then they traded for Josh Hader from the Brewers. You didn't even put that graphic up.
I didn't have
the
room,
best damn closer in the National League. Oh, by the way, so the Padres, man, is going to be a handful. I can't wait to see down the stretch when the cream rises to the top. The Padres against the Dodgers. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, and the Dodgers didn't stand pat either. They went out and they're going to take a chance on Joey Gallo, who has done nothing but strike out in New York, and that's why they got rid of him. But maybe a change of scenery, maybe going to the National League could be a good thing for him. You know, he's going to some ballparks that are a lot shorter than what he usually faces in the American League. And, you know, he doesn't have to be the guy in that lineup, right? I think he couldn't handle being one of the guys in New York. So we'll have to keep an eye on that move as well.
Yeah. But hell, the Dodgers just look down the damn bench and get the next guy. They don't need to go make any moves. Well, they got the damn team of all-stars over there.
They didn't need to make a move, but they did just to make sure. So, all right, so that's going to do it for the hurry up. I think it might be time to look at some NFL storylines this week.
Let's do it.
All right, we'll start things off right here in the great state of Ohio. The other night, we had the Hall of Fame game. Had a 45-minute rain delay because some really bad lightning was in the area on top of the rain. But in the end, the Jags and the Raiders did play the game. And at the end of the game, it was the Vegas Raiders beating Jacksonville 27-11 on Thursday night in Canton. Neither one of those guys in the graphic played. You knew that was going to happen. But there's something to being able to play in this game. And I'll tell you what, Steve, it meant everything to Josh McDaniels because most people may not know this, but he played football 100 yards from that stadium at Canton McKinley High School. He coached there. He played there. This was a homecoming. He had most of the crowd, I think, were Josh McDaniels' relatives.
Yeah, he bought the damn
quite
tickets.
The story.
Yeah, he bought the tickets. He said, you know, this is a once in a lifetime deal for him. Absolutely. But let me tell you what I took away from the game.
Okay.
I took away the fact that Josh Jacobs ran a whole lot. Josh Jacobs, the same Josh Jacobs who's in the 5th year of his rookie deal, or the 5th year that, by the way, the Raiders didn't pick up. So what does that tell me, Andy? That tells me that the Raiders are starting to shop him to other teams, and they're showing other teams, look, he still got it. He still can explosive, and he can still be the bell cow.
You know, that's an interesting perspective. I kind of disagree. I think that, you know, what people don't understand about Josh McDaniels, and they forget this because of all the success he had with Tom Brady, he's a run-first coach. Okay, he will always try to run the football, and I think he's got cowbell in the fact that Josh Jacobs is still there, and I think you're going to see Josh Jacobs have another career year if he gets back to the form he had a couple of years ago. Steve, the Raiders are making the playoffs again, and
The Raiders are going to make the
tough
playoffs
team.
regardless, Andy, because they're going to be a handful. But what I'm telling you, what their team is, if he is your cowbell back, why in the hell are you playing him in the damn first game of the season? And what they're doing is they're showing him of his availability so they can get some draft capital. Because if he was the guy that you thought he was, you'd have picked up his 5th year.
Well, that's a valid point. All right, so later today, we've got the Hall of Fame induction ceremony, the class of 2022. There you have it. Tony Baselli, the first ever Jacksonville Jaguar to make the Hall of Fame. That's why Jacksonville was included in the game this year. Your thoughts on this class, Steve? And there's some icons in there, amongst them Art McNeely, who really just transformed refereeing in professional football.
Yeah.
And one of my all-time favorite coaches, Dick Vermeil.
Yeah, well, you know, I've got a soft spot in my heart for Dick Vermeil. He brought the Rams its first championship. So, I've got nothing but love for Dick Vermeil. You asked me this a couple of days ago, and I had a chance to reflect upon it and looking at it. And you asked me about Leroy Butler in particular. Andy, Leroy Butler was a member of the All-Decade team in the 90s.
Yeah, I saw that.
And Leroy Butler, when you really go back and you look at how the evolution of Packer football as we know today, because we know that it eroded after the Bart Starr years. Mm-hmm. He was part of that. He was part of that rebuild process, him and Brett Favre. So, I think he deservedly deserves to be in. He was more than just an innovator of the Lambeau Leap, and really he's not. Actually, it's Robert Brooks. Is just that he's the guy that's actually getting the acclaim for it.
Well, the story behind that is Butler was the first one to do it. Brooks was the one that named it. That's how that goes. Yeah. So, all right, there you have it. That's going to be our NFL storylines for this week. So we've got some quarterbacks.
We still got another one. We got a big one. You missed that one. We got the big news.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Deebo Samuel finally gets what he was waiting for: 3-year, $72 million deal to stay in San Francisco. Steve, this guy's staying. Yeah, I should have known that was coming.
Well, absolutely.
Well, yeah, that and I forgot the banner with his number, so you know that made me look good. But hey, real quick, he's staying in your division. Are you still nervous about that or not really?
It's a no-brainer, man, for the 49ers, man. If you really want that operation to continue like it's been, you have to keep, man, your cornerstone pieces, man. Deebo Samuel is a cornerstone piece. What Deebo Samuel stuck his foot in the ground and said, look, man, I am tired of running the ball, man, on third downs, man. I want to get down the field like a Cooper Kupp, man. That's the kind of impact that I want to have on this team. And San Francisco rather told him that in the draft when they didn't get a wide receiver. San Francisco showed him that when they got running backs to double down on the team to bring to the team to try to show him, hey, look, we're going to get some guys to run this damn ball for you, man. We're going to need you to get down the field. So, I just think it's both teams, both sides kind of looking at it and saying, man, we need to be better about our approach.
Yeah, and speaking of your division and your team in particular, we don't really have time to get into this, but next week we need to talk about the fact that your quarterback is hurt right now, and that's the problem.
Stop. Will you stop listening to them guys, man? You're listening to those guys. Man, hey, man, you play tennis. You understand what tennis elbow is?
Yes.
Have you ever had tennis elbow?
Yes,
okay.
I have.
Has tennis elbow ever stopped you from playing a tennis match?
No, it hasn't.
Okay, there we go. Let's quit talking about it.
All right. You know what we need to talk about? We need to talk about some quarterbacks, and this time it's time to look at the AFC South this week.
Man, let's do it.
All right, Steve. So this one, to me, was one of the easiest divisions that we've broken down so far because I think everybody would agree or should agree with where we've got everybody. Now, again, we will precipice this with the fact that this is based on last season and also what we've seen so far. Okay, so I know there's
kind
a
of
lot of hype.
expectations. What
Yes.
we took that into account. as well.
There's a lot of hype around Trevor Lawrence, and deservedly so. But for the sake of where we're at right now, let's take a look at what we've got.
Let's
All
start with number 4.
We got Davis Mills from the Houston Texans. You know, Steve, he just kind of got thrown in there with the whole Watson saga last year, and I think this guy's going to be a good NFL quarterback. You know, is he a number one? I don't know, but now he's got a chance to prove it.
Andy, look at his numbers. I mean, man, he threw for 2,600 yards. His quarterback rating is 88, 16 touchdowns against 10 INTs. Okay, maybe we want to look at cutting back on the INTs, but we're talking about the Texans, the Houston Texans, for crying out loud. Here, let me ask you a question. Trivia question. Riddle me this, Batman. Name me one weapon that Davis Mills has. I'll wait.
Yeah, I know. That's the problem over there. All right, we got to keep moving. We got to pick up the pace here a little bit. Trevor Lawrence in at number 3, the most hyped quarterback coming into the 2022 season. A lot of people were talking about this on the broadcast in the Hall of Fame game. They want to see him with all the weapons that they went out and got for him. They want to see him under a new coach, Doug Peterson, which I think is a perfect fit for Jacksonville. Might be time to get a little bit more excited if you're a Jags fan.
Yeah, Dougie P is going to do one thing. He's going to cut down the interception rate. 17 is way too high for a quarterback of that magnitude.
Yeah, he tied Matt Stafford for the most of the NFL last year. All right, second, Ryan Tannehill. You got to give him his due, Steve. He's done nothing but win over the last 4 years since going to Tennessee. He's made the Pro Bowl. He's had a chance to get close to the Super Bowl. He's just been consistent, which is what was missing when he was in Miami. But now he's number 2, and the only reason he's number 2 is because of the new guy in the division, and that's the future Hall of Famer Matt Ryan at number 1. Ryan continues to put up those type of numbers, even though he had nobody besides Kyle Pitts to throw to last year. This was a no-brainer for us.
Yeah, Matt Ryan is definitely number 1, man. Tannehill, man, is going to have to get their quarterback rating. It's declined, man. It's declined the last 3 years.
Yeah.
He's been on the decline. It's going to have to get better.
All right, real quick, let's take a look at the summary of what we've got in the division. So we've got Matt Ryan at number 1. Overall, Steve, we got him right in the middle of the pack at 15. And then Tannehill right behind him in the division and overall as well. Trevor Lawrence at number 3. Overall, 21. That could change after this season. And then Davis Mills has a lot to prove still at 29 overall. So there you have it. That's the summary of the AFC South quarterbacks. Now I think it's time to take a look at the division altogether.
Let's do it. Let's go with the AFC South preview.
Our Keeping It Real Sports NFL previews continue as we take a look at the AFC South. In 4th place, it's going to be the Houston Texans. The obvious change was trading Deshaun Watson to Cleveland, which means Davis Mills is the guy now moving forward. Mills has the prototypical size of an NFL quarterback and the arm strength to back it up. Will he be able to find enough weapons on offense? Well, that's going to be their biggest question. New coach Lovie Smith takes over for David Culley and brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the locker room. The Texans did well in the draft this year, which could help them be competitive, but 3 wins could be a generous total for what could be the worst team in the NFL this season. Houston comes in at 4th place, 3-14. In 3rd place, it'll be the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse if you were a Jags fan, well, hold my beer and let me present the 2021 season. The horrific fiasco that was the Urban Meyer experiment mercifully ended last season early on, and despite all that turmoil, the Jags have found their franchise quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. Bringing in a quarterback-focused and Super Bowl winning coach and Doug Peterson was a solid move by the front office. The Jags signed free agent Christian Kirk at receiver, and this gives Lawrence a legitimate number 1 threat downfield. Travis Etienne will solidify the backfield if he can stay healthy, and number 1 pick Trayvon Walker and linebacker Devin Lloyd will improve the defense, especially at stopping the run. A better season does lie ahead, but Jacksonville is still 2 to 3 years away from being a playoff team. The Jags come in at 3rd place at 6-11. In 2nd place, it'll be the Tennessee Titans. The Titans let a potential Super Bowl season slip away last year after losing to a Bengals franchise that had never won a road playoff game prior to last season. They still have one of the best quarterback-running back duos in the NFL in Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. However, they surprised everyone, including Tannehill, when they drafted Malik Willis out of Liberty. Most scouts felt like he might be the most athletic quarterback in the 2022 draft class. Trading number 1 receiver A.J. Brown was a complete shocker, and also letting Julio Jones walk means Tannehill will have to build chemistry with rookie Treylon Burks and veteran Robert Woods, who was traded to Tennessee by the Rams. And they replaced tight end Jonnu Smith with Austin Hooper, which should help their intermediate passing game. They still have one of the premier offensive lines in the NFL, led by left tackle Taylor Lewan. And as long as reigning coach of the year Mike Vrabel is calling the shots, they will always have a tough defense to play against. But all that being said, they're going to take a step back and miss the playoffs. But they could control their own destiny with a weak late-season schedule. The Titans in second place at 9-8. That means the first-place team will be the Indianapolis Colts. This is by far the best team in the AFC South. They have one of the best running backs and an MVP candidate, Jonathan Taylor. And GM Chris Ballard went out and acquired a top 10 pass rusher and Yannick Ngakoue from the Raiders and signed 2019 NFL Defensive Player of the Year, Stephon Gilmore, to be the shutdown corner that has been missing from their defense. The biggest move, however, has to be signing future Hall of Fame quarterback Matt Ryan to replace Carson Wentz. He has a young core of receivers to throw to, led by Michael Pittman Jr., who had 88 catches for just over 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns last season. On defense, coordinator Matt Eberflus was hired by the Bears to be their next head coach, so bring in Gus Bradley after he helped the Raiders make the playoffs in 2021. He has the best defensive unit in the division, with Darius Leonard and DeForest Buckner leading the way up front, while Gilmore Hawks in the secondary. The Colts play the Titans 2 times within 4 weeks early in the season, and that could be crucial in their quest to win the division for the first time since 2014 and the 10th time overall. We feel they will get it done. Too much talent and a quarterback that can't turn the ball over in crucial times, along with the NFL's leading rusher and Jonathan Taylor, and the Colts are your division winners in 2022. There you have it, the Keeping It Real Sports AFC South preview.
Great job breaking that down, Andy. Hey, Andy, why don't you break down the NFC South for us?
Sure. Our Keeping It Real Sports NFL preview continues as we look at the NFC South. In fourth place, we've got the Atlanta Falcons. After 14 years with Matt Ryan under center, the Falcons have decided it's time to move in a different direction. What that direction isn't quite clear, as they brought in veteran backup Marcus Mariota to bridge the gap potentially for third-round draft pick Desmond Ridder out of Cincinnati. Second-year head coach Arthur Smith will look to repeat the success he had from developing Cordero Patterson last season, who had 1,166 total yards and 11 touchdowns. They have a franchise tight end in Kyle Pitts, but not much else on offense. Defensively, the secondary might be the most promising unit, led by elite corner A.J. Terrell and veteran Casey Hayward Jr. And they still have one of the best kickers in Younghoe Koo. But when your kicker is one of your best players, it's going to be a long season for Falcons fans. Atlanta at 3-14. In third place, it'll be the Carolina Panthers at 5-12. The Panthers find themselves asking the same 2 questions entering this season. Those being, who will be our starting quarterback, and can Christian McCaffrey stay healthy? McCaffrey, when healthy, is one of the most dynamic players in the entire NFL, but he has missed 23 of the Panthers' last 33 games. The Carolina should consider lightening the load with help from Chuba Hubbard to help keep him on the field. Wide receiver DJ Moore has gone over 1,100 yards in each of the last 3 seasons, but once again, who will be throwing to him? Head coach Matt Rule's job is definitely on the line, and he has to be feeling the heat already, making the quarterback position an open competition between newly acquired Baker Mayfield, last season's starter Sam Darnold, and rookie Matt Corral. Carolina's staple has always been their defense, and it's good enough, but if they get help from the offense, they could potentially contend for a playoff spot. The too many questions remain unanswered, and despite drafting the best lineman in the draft in Ikem Ngwaku, their offensive line will still be a major issue. We see the Panthers at 5-12 for the 4th season in a row. In second place, it'll be the New Orleans Saints. They enter the 2022 season as the big uneasy now that coach Sean Payton has retired to the broadcasting booth. New head coach Dennis Allen inherits a talented roster with the likes of Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, and Taysom Hill already mainstays. The Saints went out and added more weapons down the field by drafting Chris Olave from Ohio State and signing free agent Jarvis Landry. Quarterback Jameis Winston is coming off a torn ACL that ended his 2021 season after only 7 games, but they expect him to be healthy and ready for the start of the season. And they have some holes that were not filled in the offseason on the offensive line, so that could be a concern for Winston's ability to stay off the ground. Allen will continue to call plays on a stout defense led by Cameron Jordan, who had 8.5 sacks in the last 4 games of the 2021 season. Demario Davis leads the linebacking core once again, and their run defense is one of the best in the NFL. but they signed former Jets safety Marcus May and brought in the Honey Badger Tyrann Mathieu to fill the spots up very quickly in the secondary. The Saints are a sleeper to watch in the NFC, and we have them fighting for the division or a wild card spot at 10-7. That means the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will once again win the South. We've got them at 13-4. They lost its quarterback, head coach, and tight end all in one offseason when they made a wish or wrote a letter to Giselle and convinced Tom Brady not to retire for one more run. Without Gronk to fall back on, Brady will have to build chemistry with veteran Kyle Rudolph and rely even more on his receivers. But the Bucs, when healthy, have one of the best receiving corps in the NFL with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin coming back from an ACL injury, and newly signed future Hall of Famer Julio Jones. The backfield is solidified as well with workhorse Leonard Fournette and scat back Giovanni Bernard. However, there are major concerns on the offensive line due to the surprising retirement of Pro Bowl guard Ali Marpet and losing center Ryan Jensen to a knee injury at the start of training camp. The key to Bulls' defense will be linebackers Devin White and Levante David, and with White's contract expiring, look for him to have a bounce-back season and earn another big payday next year. Their schedule is no cakewalk with opponents like the Rams, Packers, Chiefs, and Bengals on the docket, but who in their right mind would bet against Tom Brady? Not us. The Bucs win the division and might be headed back to the Super Bowl at 13-4. There you have it, our Keeping It Real Sports NFC South preview.
Great job, Andy. Great job. Way to break that down. And you know what that brings us to, buddy.
It's time for a sound off. We've only got time for one this week, but let's do it.
Just doing one?
We're just doing one. I sent you a text message. Just roll.
Sound off. My sound off is about hypocritical good old boys organization known as the National Football League, or even better, Roger Goodell. See, the NFL operates under two sets of rules, whether they want you to believe it or not. See, one is for the owners, and then it's another set for everyone else. See, basically, it's a do as we say and not as we do organization. See, only in the NFL can an owner attempt to remove a woman's clothes and pressure her into having sex and then pay her $1.6 million in hush money. You see Daniel Snyder, I'm talking about the Washington Reds, the Washington Commanders on it. But see, you can't bring awareness to causes that you believe in. See, case in point, D'Angelo Williams fined $10,000 for wearing pink cleats. Brandon Marshall fined $11,000 for wearing orange cleats. Are you serious? Ryan Clark fined $15,000 for wearing eye black. And then the one that we all know about, Colin Kaepernick, blackballed for the league for kneeling, for crying out loud, for kneeling. You know, if you're an owner, you can openly pay for sexual favors and nothing happens. But don't you go and get a massage. You know, not that I'm vindicating anything that Deshaun Watson did, but let's just look at what Robert Kraft did. He paid for sexual favors and nothing happened. So that brings me to this guy who basically told the NFL the truth on his owner. And the NFL did an investigation only to find that everything that he said was the absolute truth. Flores goes on to make a statement. And he's thankful that the NFL found his allegations against owner Stephen Ross true. But what happened? Joe Starkey of the Pittsburgh Post said, right, Brian Flores crushes Stephen Ross, and yet Ross avoids the worst. Ross basically goes thumbs up against the NFL, basically nah situation, okay? They said I didn't do it. They didn't find me guilty of it. But don't you find it odd that the decision came down on the same week of the Deshaun Watson case? Things that make you go, See, the NFL, or Roger Goodell in particular, see, I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. See, we all know what you're doing. We see what you're doing. And we're watching you. That's my sound off.
Very well said. Obviously, we're running out of shows, so we don't have enough time to break that down. But
45 in the can, Andy.
Yeah, exactly.
45
next
in
week,
the can.
Next week, I'm gonna let Live Golf have it. You heard it here first. I'm teasing it already. You know what, Steve? I thought about it not only because of time, but I got so much to say. I'm putting mine in the can too. There you go.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. 45 in the books, man. And hey, look, it's been fun, but we got to run. Hey, Andy, until next week.
We wish you love
and peace. Deuces.